So I'm delighted to say joining us on the We Are West Ham podcast for the very first time is sports journalist extraordinaire, Graham Nickless. Graham, great to have you on the podcast for the first time. Bournemouth new to the Premier League this season, so one of the challenges that presents me is looking for someone to do these opposition views on the podcast. Obviously, the more the steady Premier League teams, we have contacts in the bank. I was fortunate enough to be able to have been in contact with you already. Given that Bournemouth have only got about 10 fans in the whole of the UK, there's somewhat of a rarer breed and a little bit harder to get hold of. But you are a man who knows your stuff about the Cherries. They've come up from the Championship. I think their fans are quite keen to remind everyone that they were written off before they'd even played a game this season. A little bit of turmoil, getting rid of Scott Parker, appointing Gary O'Neill, a takeover going on, but somehow they've managed to do jolly well in the league so far. 10th place, 10 games played, 3 wins and 4 draws. A very happy return, I would imagine, indeed.
Well, exactly, but what you've just summed up there is absolutely perfect, Will. I mean, you said they've got 10 fans. Well, if you want to underestimate a club, then maybe a few clubs in the Premier League are underestimating them, and therefore they are going out and getting results. You do know they've got a huge fan base of about 10,800. It is the smallest club in the Football League, but what they're doing, they're giving hope to the minnows in the Football League that you can get there. It's just a little bit like Forest Green getting into the Football League. There's a lot of clubs I know in the non-league thinking, do you know what? We can follow them. We can do a Forest Green. And there'll be a lot of clubs in the Football League going, hang on, we can possibly get into the Premier League. So they're giving people hope. Now, we all know that they probably wouldn't have got there without the money, from the Russian chairman, Maxime Denim. But you need a bit of luck. You're not telling me Man City didn't need a bit of luck when their rich owners came in. And obviously Newcastle are doing very well for themselves with the Saudi owners. And let's face it, Chelsea, Abramovich going there has changed their luck. So you can't, you can't underestimate the fact that Bournemouth have had luck. But when Bournemouth went up to the Premier League for the first time, they stayed there 5 seasons. And that's quite unheard of for a club like Bournemouth's stature. And they did it for 5 seasons, which is incredible. So they've come up again and they're holding their own, which I must say does surprise me a bit.
So you mentioned there, Graham, about their success before. It always struck me as, or particularly the more recent times, as a very well-run club as well. It's all very well having money, but it's how you spend it, which is as important,
correct,
as the amount you've got at whatever stage of the football pyramid you're at. So does that still strike you as the case? And you're saying you're surprised by their form this season. Where does that surprise come from for you? Because they've always struck me as a well-run club, and as soon as they went down last time, you had the impression it wasn't going to be very long at all until they did come back up. It was hardly a surprise.
Well, the parachute payments help, Will, as you know. They are a well-run club. In fact, it's a small club that has got a degree of family feel about it. I mean, if you ask most journalists that come down to Bournemouth, I still like, and I know I shouldn't say this, I still like to call it Dean Court, but I'm not allowed to say that, Vitality Stadium. They do find it a very friendly club, and it's a homely friendly club, which is important. Now, that family transcends onto the pitch. In fact, the players are in a little unit there where they know they're the underdog and therefore they know they've got to fight against the odds. But they are a family club. Now, you've got these huge clubs out there and a lot of the players come in. I think, who was it the other day said, one of the managers said in the Premier League, one of the top managers said, I don't know if I don't know whether it was the Liverpool manager that said he had to go and take his players to museum to find out about the history of the club. Now, this doesn't really happen at Bournemouth because they know when they come to Bournemouth, they're soon taught that the club has fought itself away from the bottom of League Two under Eddie Howe, 12 years ago. And they've got themselves in the Premier League. So there's a case of belonging there at Bournemouth, which probably isn't at other clubs. So, yes, the family spirit there certainly helps.
Yeah. So before we look ahead to the game next Monday night at London Stadium, let's sort of to go back to this season. Then Scott Parker was in charge, got them up last season. Didn't last very long. There was discontent, and some of the interviews he was giving after games, there was a clear divide between himself and the board. Gary O'Neill has come over. So before we do the takeover, because there's a Las Vegas consortium, it's as good as signed and sealed and delivered, isn't it? Just waiting to go through the owners and directors tests at the moment. So before we get onto the takeover and the game next Monday at London Stadium, the Scott Parker situation first. He was obviously sacked after a few games. What did you make of that? Did you see it coming? Was that a surprise?
Well, I was absolutely, as you know, Will, I cover them for the Sun newspaper. And when I went there for a couple of pre-season friendlies, he straight away came out with a dig at the board by saying he didn't have the players he needed. And he was saying his squad was weaker than the team that went up. Now, that is quite a statement. And I was delighted to have the story, of course, because it was a good little story. And it continued. He kept saying it. And obviously, I pursued that line because it was a good line. Because how many managers criticise their board when they've just gone up? Now, I understood. I was told that he had his collar felt by the board to calm it down. And he did, to a degree, until the 9-0 thumping at Liverpool. So he then came out again and had another dig at the board. And the following day, the chairman of the club came out and virtually said, "Thank you to the spectators that went up to Liverpool. We owe you. We're sorry for the result." And I thought to myself, Scott's comments aren't going to go down very well. And within a 24 hours, he had gone.
Yeah, of course.
Now I might be wrong here, but I got a feeling that Scott really tried to manipulate that situation, and he instigated his own sacking. Because you've got to be intelligent enough to say, when you've had your collar felt, you don't criticise the board, and he did. Now my lights have gone out here. I've no idea why, but there you go.
You haven't paid your bills, Graham.
Well, we don't get paid enough on the Sun of Sports as freelance sports writers, so that's probably the reason why you're saying that. There you go.
There we go.
There you go. I've paid it. Hold on a second. Let me just phone the electricity board. Please don't cut me off again. Thank you.
Yeah, the light rations, the electricity rations of.
Hold on. It happens to football clubs. I hear.
This is true. They're all kicking off earlier these days, aren't they, to save on the power?
Yeah, but what happened at Leeds last night or whatever?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
exactly. So they're multi-million-pound companies. I'm just a humble little sports writer here.
Exactly that. So it didn't seem like, and the statement from the board upon Scott's departure just seemed a bit acrimonious in the end, and they were sort of saying, we want a manager who's on the same wavelength as us, and we'll be talking about mutual respect and that sort of thing. You sort of felt that. I don't know. It just seemed strange because it clearly seemed like the club had these conversations with Parker, and i.e., look, you shouldn't be surprised. This is what we're going to be spending, and yet he was still quite sort of vocal and bordering on like petulant about the whole thing, or so it seemed from my position anyway. Obviously it's which line you believe, isn't it? But
you can't blame him when you're going to the Premier League against some of the best teams probably in the world, club teams in the world, when he's got a weaker squad. And to be honest, when you looked at it, it was a weaker squad than the one that went up, because some really good players left the club and they didn't really replace them with you know, incredibly good players. And you've got to look at it and go, well, hold on, I'm heading into the Premier League with a weaker squad. What am I going to do here? And he looked at his pre-season friendlies, which he didn't do very well in. And then you've got to look at yourself and go, hold on, do I want another relegation in my CV? This isn't looking clever. You know, I've got a chairman, beg your pardon, an owner who's looking to get away. Now, those rumours have been going on for months, if not 6 months, 9 months. And then he's thinking, well, hold on, I've got an owner who wants to sell the club. He's not prepared to invest enough money into the team for me to stay there.
Yeah.
So he's analysing it and thinking, well, hold on, I'm on a hiding to nothing here. And he might have thought, you know what, do I really want this hassle of another relegation season? Listen, I've no idea. You never got to know Scott Parker well. You know, I got on quite well with a lot of Bournemouth managers in the past, but you didn't get close to him. And I just wonder whether his heart was in it and whether he instigated this move or this departure. And so therefore, he probably wasn't crying in his milk when he got the sack.
Support for the We Are West Ham podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who are the men's below-the-waist champions of the world. Manscaped offer precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, and they just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, all across Europe. And to add to that, we've got our hands on the quality Weed Whacker nose and ear trimmer, so we're well on our way towards looking as well-groomed as West Ham do under David Moyes. Clean, tidy, and looking absolutely fantastic on weekends. Jonesy, we got our hands on the performance package from Manscaped, which has got loads of absolutely quality bits of kit in it. And I think you've got yours there.
Yeah, so I've got the performance package here. I even throw in a free toiletry bag as well, which
Happy days.
Can't go wrong with that. So first up, we've got the Lawnmower 4.0, a lovely bit of kit. Where's the camera? There it is. Turn it on. You've got a little light for your dark spots, just in case you can't see certain bits. Very,
Not
very helpful.
Easy, is it? Seeing what
Exactly. So that's got that's waterproof. It's it's very, very nice on your skin. So well worth a go on that one.
Vouch for that personally as well, 100%. Jonesy. Does very good bit of kit for the job.
Me too. Weed Whacker. When you're getting old, a little bit like me. You get hairs popping up in places you don't really want them, and they're very persistent. They keep coming back, so this does the job for that.
I actually found one out my ear the other day, Jonesy, and I'm not even 31 yet.
It's not ideal. I'm 34 and a half, and it's a struggle, mate. It's a struggle. So this stays close to me in the mornings.
At all times.
Yeah, particularly in the mornings when I'm in the bathroom, just in case I find anything. But the good stuff in here actually is pretty good. We've got Crop Reviver.
Okay.
That is refreshing ball toner. Just keeps things nice and soft after you've done all your grooming, and then you've got ball deodorant. Keeps things smelling lovely, just in case you need it to smell lovely. So yeah, really, really good.
Which always helps, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, you want it to smell nice, don't you? So
exactly that.
All really, really good. Pocket inside the bag as well. You even get some mats to keep things clean and tidy when you're doing your grooming. So all in all, the performance package gets a massive thumbs up. It's a superb bit of kit and well worth it.
Happy days. Well, we've all been there, Jonesy, haven't we? We're 6 weeks out from Christmas at the moment, and we've all spent time wondering what to get for our dads, uncles, brothers, granddads, cousins, when you just have not got a clue what to buy the blokes in your life. So we would definitely recommend, lads, joining the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, who we've teamed up with to bring you 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the promo code MASSIVE at manscaped.com. That's massive as in West Ham are massive at manscaped.com for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. You wouldn't stick a goalkeeper up front if you were a manager, so why choose anything other than the right tools for the job when it comes to your grooming regime? Trust us, you won't regret it. No, it certainly felt that way. It just felt like an amicable departure. So, Graham, those West Ham fans listening to this and all of that, and go and talk about weaker squads and players not being good enough. Aside from that hammering at Liverpool, they might be shouting at their phones or wherever they're listening or watching to this podcast or YouTube video and saying they're 10th, Graham. They're just far plenty worse teams in the league than them at the moment this season. It can't be as bad as Parker was making out. I hear that, and I also hear from people who perhaps are a little bit more in the know that suggest that it's maybe not that sustainable and that they probably won't maintain this points per game ratio across the course of a 38 game season. Where do you stand on that?
Well, you're going to say that about Bournemouth when you got the smallest crowd, one of the smallest clubs in the league. You got a chairman, an owner who wants to sell. But Will, if you get a solidarity within a team and they're working for each other, that can sometimes outdo being the best players in the league. Now, we all know that Bournemouth is not going to be competing in the top half. We all know Bournemouth cannot lace the boots of Man City, Arsenal's, Chelsea, Tottenham, etc., Liverpool. We know that. So, listen, let me go back in 1988, before you were probably born. When
3 years ago, in fact.
Okay. Well, Wimbledon, the crazy gang, went to Wembley, and I knew the players very well. They went to Wembley to play Liverpool, looking for a double. Now, we all knew Liverpool were the better team. We all know they were classier players. But Liverpool, lost because Wimbledon did a number on them. Now, you're not going to tell me that Bobby Good was going to say to those players, let's go out there and play lovely football and try and beat Liverpool and look good. No, absolutely hell. They gave the players hell in the tunnel, and they worked their socks off and got a result. Now, you might say it's not football, it's not brilliant, it's not wonderful. I'm sorry, sod that. You got to go out and win the game. And they went out and won the game with a Loris Sanchez header. Now, we all remember that. So it's not just the case that you are the best team in the league and you turn up and you win games. That's the beauty of our football at all levels in this country, that you can surprise teams. Now, we all know that Bournemouth aren't going to win too many of the top 6 games and beyond. But what they're doing at the moment, they're winning the games of the teams around them. Or
absolutely, yeah,
and that's all you need.
Yeah, I mean, they've beaten Aston Villa 2-0 and nil of these teams around them. I mean, obviously the defeats have come home to Arsenal, away to Liverpool, and away to Manchester City. But they've beaten Aston Villa, draw with Wolves, beaten Nottingham Forest, drew with Newcastle, drew with Brentford, beaten Leicester, and drew with Fulham. Yeah, there's not a negative result in all of those games against teams who many will suspect they are fighting against for those positions at the end of the season.
That's how you survive, Will. That's how you survive. And let's not forget now, I think with Man City's defeat at the weekend, they're the only team unbeaten in 6, I think. And this is wonderful, and all credit to Gary O'Neill for what he's done there.
So let's talk about that then. I assume the two are sort of linked, aren't they? Really, this takeover at the moment, the owner of the Las Vegas Golden Knights is Foley. Is his name?
Bill Foley. Yeah.
Bill Foley, that's it. Yeah, Bill Foley. I understand, or you were the one who informed me, in fact, that the deal is as good as sort of signed and sealed and delivered, and it's very much a case of rubber stamping through the fit and proper owners as tests at the moment. So that's as good as done. And Gary O'Neill is sort of in situ at the moment, doing a sterling job. It's strange. I think it was Solanke who came out after their draw with Fulham at the weekend, Bournemouth draw, and said the players would love it if O'Neill got given the job full time. The two issues are obviously linked. What's your sort of take on the takeover and what that will mean for O'Neill going forward?
Now, I understand that Bill Foley has the potential. Well, he's going to be the new owner, the Premier League, are going to ratify this because he's a multi-million. Well, I think he's a billionaire, 1.2 billion. I think he's worth. He's been in sport a long time. He's got a reputation. He's not some fly-by-night who's just walked in from, the nearby field. He's somebody who knows what he's doing in sport. So I cannot believe they would not sanction this move. And I understand he said to the board of Bournemouth, you choose the next manager. Now, that board has got to say, well, do we gamble on some kind of big name who's going to come in here and get this team playing for each other and stay in the Premier League? Or do you look at a coach, first team coach, who's come into the dressing room and said after a 9-0 defeat at Liverpool, and he's got them playing for each other and he's got them working for each other. As I said to you before, there's a bond. And there's a bond there, like the Wimbledon bond. They went out as a team and beat Liverpool, and he's now got them fighting for each other. I watched them on television Match of the Day at Fulham, and they were working their socks off to get that result. If they've got a vulnerability, I think that's in defence when you've got a big centre forward like Mitrovic, and I think they can be bullied sometimes, but they can play football, and they are playing football, and he's gelled this team. He's not arrogant. He doesn't say he deserves the job. He won't talk about it. It's a straight bat every time you ask him a question. I put it to him the other day that the players want him to be the manager. And I said, had they come to you and asked you the question, are you going to be the manager? Are you want the manager? He said, no, they haven't asked me the question. It was a denial. But they are obviously playing for him. So who do you bring in from the outside who's going to get the players playing for a new manager who knows them? And if the players know that, do you know what, this guy trusts me, I know him, I trust him, well, you give him a chance. And I think they should give him a chance. And some people saying they'll only give him a chance up to the World Cup and then they'll bring somebody else in. But what's the point?
It can't hurt to give him the gig till the end of the year, Graham, surely. Or the end of the season, the end of the season.
No, exactly. Give him the gig. See what he's all about. Now, if he keeps them in the Premier League, as I said to you at the start of this, I did doubt their chances of staying in the Premier League, especially when I saw what squad they had and what they did in the pre-season friendly. But he's got them working together in tandem and he's getting results. And you've got to say, well, hold on. Out of this little bunch of players, he's getting results. I bet there's a lot of clubs out there like to have 6 unbeaten at the moment on their record, and
Definitely.
all credit Gary O'Neill.
Definitely. So, Graham,
excuse me, my throat's drying up. I've got to have a little taste of rosé.
By all means, this is a very informal podcast, Graham.
It's only for medicinal purposes. You understand that? So
I understand.
I've just had COVID, as you know. And I've got to replenish the throat.
One of the lesser known recovery techniques for COVID, I believe, rosé. But one that will be pleasant listening to.
Well, I vouch for it. I vouch for it. Not to you youngsters, not always, but yes.
I don't know if
to you West Ham football fans, and you probably have needed a few rosés over the years. But anyway.
I think this is some sort of the point of the podcast where I should make some sort of disclaimer about that not being official medical advice. But I think we'll be okay. I can't imagine the NHS are going to come hounding after us. So rosé for COVID. Back to football very briefly, if we can. West Ham go to Anfield on Wednesday as Bournemouth host Southampton for a South Coast derby.
Correct.
I feel like that's one of those games. You tell me. Is there a rivalry there, or is it? No, I didn't think there was.
It's Southampton. It's Southampton, Portsmouth.
Yeah.
The Southampton.
Did Bournemouth have a? Who's Bournemouth's main rivals? Do they have any?
Well, don't forget, they've been in the lower divisions for years. And who are the nearest clubs? A Swindon, a Reading, a Torquay. You've got to look
Plymouth.
at these.
I'm going to say you're going along the Devon coast a bit more.
No, I'll tell you why, Will. It's because Bournemouth haven't got, how can I put this? They haven't got a traditional huge fan base. Now, look at Brighton down the road. that for some unknown reason, well, I've heard all the stories about they've got this rivalry with Crystal Palace. For goodness sake, it all happened because of one game or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. And Portsmouth and Southampton have been each other's necks for years. That's a rivalry. I mean, someone was trying to tell me the other day that Portsmouth versus Plymouth was a derby. Hold on. About 120, 50 miles between them.
Yeah.
And someone called it a dockyard rivalry. Well, the people at Portsmouth went mad and said, hold on, we're not a dockyard, whatever. But no, there's no real rivalry at Bournemouth. Now, you've got to remember that, I come from the Reading area, so, I will say I'm a Reading fan. I've got to say that because I supported them on the Elm Park terraces and I moved down here 20, 30 years ago. So I've got a soft spot for Bournemouth. But there's no real rivalry. And you've got to look at Bournemouth as a whole and say it's a lovely little town. It's a beautiful town, beautiful seaside town. But they've got a fan base of what? 10,000. Now, maybe if they had a bigger ground, you'd probably get 15, 20,000. But if you went back to the Championship, you'd be back down to your 10s and 8s. So it's not a huge club. I.e., Brighton years ago, I was in a third division match with Reading, and there was 33,000 there. Well, that's a huge fan base. So therefore, if they got a rivalry with Crystal Palace, I'll take that on the nose because, okay, that's a huge fan base. But no, Bournemouth have got no rivalry.
So that Southampton game will be on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Obviously, West Ham didn't manage to beat the Saints at the weekend, but I watched Southampton play Everton the week before that, and they weren't very good at all. It seems a matter of when rather than if Hasenhüttl will go. But so that's the game Bournemouth have got before that. So there's every chance they go into the West Ham game next Monday with a spring in their step. How do you see the West Ham game at the London Stadium being played out style-wise, Graham?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I haven't seen too much of West Ham apart from Match of the Day. You get the feeling that they're a little bit of hit and miss from what I've seen. Depends really what probably West Ham's team turns up on that day. How they approach Bournemouth. Maybe one or two other clubs have probably undermined them a little bit and have approached them and thought, well, we can beat these Bournemouth boys, but you've got a team spirit there at Bournemouth, as I said before. Now, Solanke, I to be honest with you, I thought Solanke would probably be lucky to get 10 goals this season in the Premier League, and because it's so difficult in this higher level, and Bournemouth don't score many goals. I think they've got one of the lowest goal scorers in the division, but they somehow manage to keep the defence tight and get a victory or a draw. And it depends really how West Ham go for it. If they go for them tooth and nail, they might have a chance. But they've got to be very wary of this Bournemouth team because there's a team spirit there. And I wouldn't put it past Bournemouth from getting a result.
Would it be a sort of more of a pragmatic approach from Bournemouth then? What sort of style? Is there a Gary O'Neill style? Is he pragmatic, possession based? Will he go for the game? How will it sort of work?
Well, that's a good question, Will. We're getting to know Gary O'Neill. We don't really know. He doesn't give much away at all. It's straight bat. The Sun say to me, "Can you do a likely Bournemouth team?" Well, I do it every week based on the previous team. If no one's injured, I put the previous team in, and that's what he's like. If they've got a result, he'll go with that. So he'll keep in faith in the players. And you got to look at that first goal that Bournemouth got at the weekend against Fulham very early, but a lovely little move there. And I think it was Solanke scored, didn't he? And so they've got it within them. So there's times when they really will play quite well. And I don't think he's one that will defend. He probably knows deep down that he's got to get results to help him get the job, although he won't say that in person. He won't say anything. He's just happy to take it game by game. Well, I'll tell you what, if he keeps getting his results, if they go to 7 unbeaten against Southampton and they're taking on West Ham, 7 unbeaten, well, that's the best unbeaten run in the league. So he gives the team spot, keeps the same sort of team and gives them confidence to go for it. So I can't see there be pragmatic against West Ham, and no disrespect to West Ham, but they're not an Arsenal, they're not a Liverpool. Then let's face it, he's not played one of the big guns yet since he's been in charge. That's coming up shortly against Spurs. Maybe he will be more pragmatic against them, but he might have a go at West Ham.
Yeah, clearly not too concerned about your popularity among West Ham fans, Graham, making it clear that West Ham not considered the big guns, whereas Spurs are. Graham Nickless, that name will be they'll have a black mark against it among lots of the listeners of this podcast.
Listen, I don't really care about that. Look at their league positions and look at where they've been. West Ham. West Ham plays wonderful football. They have done it, renowned for that. But you've got to be up there to be regarded as a top six club, surely.
Of course, yeah. No, you're totally right. Go on then. I mean, it's been brilliant having you on, Graham. And you said you fancy Bournemouth to get a result. I'm not. I'll be going to the game Monday night. Looking forward to it. A game at London Stadium under the lights. Bournemouth playing well, so it'll be two good teams. I hope they don't just come back and sit behind the ball, because that doesn't. West Ham aren't very good at breaking teams down like that, and it doesn't make for much of a spectacle. But I I'm hardly brimming with confidence. But you said you fancy him to get a result. Give us a score prediction then before we let you go.
1-0.
1-0. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think after the frustration of the Southampton only drawing against Southampton, I think West Ham fans will be looking for a win. But also sort of wary that it's not a complete given, and coming off the back of a trip to Anfield, which will be no mean feat and a bit of a test. It's just got that precarious feeling this week for West Ham fans. But look, Graham, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on the show. Really appreciate you giving us not only your time, but your insight and knowledge on all things Bournemouth. It's been great having you on. We hope you'll join us again later in the season. But